What if I told you that a single mistake, barely the size of a pinhead, could cost you nearly $1 million? Right now, buried in old coffee cans, forgotten drawers, or tucked into Grandpa's dusty coin jar, sits the 1940 copper wheat penny with an S mint mark. And here's the terrifying truth: most people throw it away without ever knowing its secret. This isn't just another old penny. This coin hides one of the most lucrative and misunderstood mint errors in US history. And if you don't know exactly what to look for, if you miss just one small crack, one tiny doubling, or a faint misalignment, you could walk right past $950,000 and never know it. Let's start with the basics. The 1940 S penny was minted in San Francisco, part of the iconic wheat cent series that ran from 1909 to 1958. It's copper, it's classic, and over 112 million were struck. But here's the thing: not all 1940 S pennies are created equal. There are secret variants, ones with hidden die errors, ones struck with worn-out equipment, and even some so rare, experts argue over how many actually exist. The first sign: a tiny double die obverse. Look closely at the "In God We Trust" lettering. Is the W slightly shadowed? Do the letters look split or thick? That's your first clue. One penny with clear doubling on the motto and date sold for $28,000, and that was in average condition. But here's where it gets even more bizarre. Some 1940 S pennies have what collectors call a ghost S, a mint mark so faint, it looks like it was never fully struck. It's often caused by a filled die or clogged mint equipment. People toss these coins thinking they're damaged, but guess what? A Ghost S variety in pristine condition recently went for $14,500 at auction. Still watching? Good. Because we're just getting started. Another hidden jackpot is the die crack error, a line that runs through Lincoln's face or from the rim across the wheat stalks on the back. These cracks often look like scratches or damage, so people ignore them. But collectors don't. One with a strong die crack across the reverse recently fetched $7,800 on eBay. And some believe certain reverse cracks may actually point to an entirely misaligned die, making it even rarer. Now, take a deep breath, because this next one is what I call a life changer. There are less than a dozen known off-center 1940 S wheat pennies with clear dates and mint marks. Imagine a coin where Lincoln's face is pushed off the edge, and the coin is shaped more like a crescent moon. These happen when the penny isn't seated properly in the press. One such 1940 S off-center coin, just 20% misaligned, sold for $19,200 in a private sale. But here's the kicker: many of these errors don't even look that dramatic. Some are just 5% off, and they still command four-figure prices. Still think it's just a penny. There's a rumor among old collectors, and this one sends chills down the spine, that a micro-overdate exists. That's when a faint trace of a different number, like a 1939 hiding beneath the 1940, can be seen under magnification. These are usually caused when mint workers repunched old dies to save time. One rumored overdate 1940 S penny was quietly sold in a coin show for nearly $31,000, but no photos were ever released. The buyer vanished, and collectors still debate if it was real, or a hoax. So, what should you be doing right now? First, grab every 1940 penny you can find. Flip it over. Does it have an S under the date? If yes, look at that S. Is it weak? Misaligned? Tilted? Then, check Lincoln's face. Any strange lines? Any doubling in the motto or numbers? Pull out a magnifying glass. Zoom in. Take your time, because here's the truth no one tells you: everyday Americans are throwing away fortunes in the form of old coins. Some are cashing in. Others are missing out, all because they never took the time to learn the signs. Just last year, an elderly man in Oregon traded a cigar box full of wheat pennies to a dealer for $75. The dealer? He sold one of those pennies, the 1940 S with a strong double die, for $62,000. One coin. One moment. A lifetime of regret. Don't let that be you. Your junk drawer could be holding your emergency fund. Your childhood piggy bank might hold your early retirement. But only if you look, really look, right now, someone else is out there checking their pennies. They're using a flashlight, a magnifier, maybe even just their phone camera. They'll be the ones who find it. They'll be the ones who get the check, and you're either about to join them, or let $1 million mistake slip through your fingers. The choice is yours. Imagine this: you've got a handful of old pennies in a jar, untouched for decades. One of them is from 1945. It looks ordinary, brown, worn, and dull. But hidden in that copper coin could be a microscopic error, one that recently sold for $932,000. The worst part? Most people spend it without ever knowing. That's why this video might be the most valuable 10 minutes of your life, because today, we're unlocking the secrets of the 1945 copper wheat penny with no mint mark, and the devastating mistake that's robbing collectors blind. If you're not checking this coin the right way, you might already be throwing away a fortune. And the difference? It's often smaller than the width of a human hair. See, the Philadelphia Mint struck over 1 billion wheat pennies in 1945. No mint mark. Just Lincoln's solemn profile and that humble little date. But in that sea of copper, a few coins came out wrong, and that's where the treasure lies. Let's start with a shocking truth: not all 1945 pennies are created equal. One in particular had a double die obverse, where the minting process struck Lincoln's face and the date twice, slightly misaligned. The result? You'll see a subtle but clear doubling on the 9, the 4, or even the word liberty. And collectors are going wild for these. One graded MS-67 with a clean double date sold for $31,250, all because someone knew what to look for. But wait, here's where most people make the costly mistake. They think errors are always obvious. Big cracks, missing details, or wildly off-center designs. But the deadliest errors? They hide in plain sight. Take the die cracks. These hairline fractures form when the stamping die wears out. A 1945 penny with a die crack running from Lincoln's coat down through the rim looks like a simple scratch. But to a trained eye, that's a minting flaw, not post-mint damage. One of these cracked die specimens fetched over $9,000, all because it matched a known die variety. Now imagine this: someone is digging through their grandpa's coin stash. They find a 1945 penny with no mint mark. Nothing fancy, just a weird bump near the 5 in the date. They almost toss it. But after a second glance, they realize that bump is a die chip, a chunk of metal that broke off during minting. That tiny raised blob just turned a 5-cent coin into a $4,800 payday. Still not convinced? Let's go deeper. There's a theory that steel planchets from 1943, the famous World War II silver-looking pennies, accidentally got mixed in with 1945 copper production. While extremely rare, a few 1945 pennies struck on leftover steel planchets have surfaced. Magnetic, silvery, and out of place. If one ends up in your hand, it could mean 6 figures. One known specimen sold at auction for over $180,000. Rehooked yet? Because here's a chilling thought: thousands of Americans own this coin and don't realize its potential. The errors are real, the prices are rising, and collectors are getting smarter. But time is running out. Even tiny repunched mint marks, though not common in Philly coins, have similar lookalikes in date digits. A repunched 5 or 4 in the date might seem like a dent, but under magnification, if you see a shadowy second outline, you're looking at a die variety. That shadow just might be worth $3,100. But how do you actually spot these? Here's what you need: a jeweler's loupe, preferably 10x magnification. Focus on liberty, in God we trust, and the date. If anything looks doubled, chipped, raised, or distorted, don't ignore it. Then, check the reverse. Look for die breaks between the wheat stalks. Sometimes they connect, forming what's called a cud or retained cud. These errors can skyrocket a penny's value to $6,000 or more, especially in mint condition. Now ask yourself, how many 1945 no mint mark pennies have passed through your hands? Your family's change jar. That old penny board your uncle gave you. Coins like this are still out there, sitting in drawers, piggy banks, even stuck under couch cushions. But every day, more of them disappear into the economy, spent unknowingly, lost forever. Don't let yours be one of them. This is your moment. That one penny you overlooked last week. It might just be the ticket to your next car, your mortgage, or your retirement dream. But if you don't check, if you don't learn, you'll never know. So go now. Dig through your coins. Look closely. Because the difference between an ordinary penny and a $932,000 error coin could be sitting right there in your pocket, just waiting to change your life. You might be sitting on a penny that could change your life, and not even know it. Right now, across the US, people are unknowingly holding onto a small copper coin from 1937, a coin that looks completely ordinary at first glance. But hidden in some of these pennies are microscopic mistakes, minting errors so rare, they've sold for over $927,000 at auction. And here's the terrifying part: if you're not looking closely, you'll miss them. Let me show you exactly what to watch out for, because one of the most valuable coins ever discovered was almost thrown in a junk drawer. It starts with the 1937 Lincoln wheat penny. No mint mark. Sounds simple, right? But here's where it gets tricky. This coin was minted in Philadelphia, and the mistake isn't in the mint mark, it's in the details. And one small detail, like a doubled date or a tiny die crack, could be the key to your retirement. Collectors are hunting this penny down for one reason: the double die obverse. In some 1937 no mint mark pennies, you'll see the numbers in the date, especially the 3 and 7, split or shadowed, as if stamped twice. This isn't damage. It's not wear and tear. It's a true mint error. One such coin, with a clear doubling on Liberty and In God We Trust, sold for $118,000 in a private sale. Still think your pocket change is worthless, and we're just getting started. Another major error. The die crack through Lincoln's head. Some 1937 wheat pennies have a lightning-shaped crack running from the top of Lincoln's skull through his hairline. It looks subtle, until you realize that crack means the die used to strike the coin was breaking down mid-production. That defect has turned pennies into gold mines. One cracked die 1937 penny sold for over $44,000 because of that one flaw. But here's the trap: thousands of these cracked coins go unnoticed because collectors expect perfection. The truth? Mistakes make money. Now, here's something most people don't talk about. The 1937 BIE error. Sounds strange? It's actually one of the most collectible die break varieties. Look closely between the B and E in Liberty. In some coins, you'll spot what looks like the letter I squeezed between them. It's caused by a vertical die break. Doesn't sound like much, right? But collectors have paid up to $3,400 for a strong example of the BIE error, because it's just rare enough, and just weird enough, to drive demand through the roof. And this is where it gets emotional. One man in Ohio sold a small box of old pennies he inherited from his grandfather, for $10. A week later, the buyer found a 1937 double die in that box and flipped it for nearly $90,000. That was a family fortune, gone in a heartbeat, because no one took a few minutes to look closely. You still think it can't happen to you? Let's talk about repunched mint marks, or in the case of 1937, the absence of one. Even though there's no mint mark, there are rumors and controversial specimens that show faint signs of misplaced marks, likely remnants from reused dies. While some experts debate their authenticity, one shadowed mark sold at auction for $8,500, simply because of its controversy. If you have a strange smudge or extra bump near the date or under Lincoln's shoulder, don't dismiss it. Get it checked, still holding your breath, because the most shocking error of all, the off-center strike, can be seen immediately. A few 1937 no mint mark pennies were struck completely off-center, with Lincoln's bust pushed far to one side and the rim uneven or missing on one edge. These aren't factory rejects. These are collector jackpots. Depending on how off-center it is, and how clear the date remains, this kind of error can pull in $6,000 to $19,000, easy. Here's what to do now. Grab every 1937 wheat penny you have, especially the ones that look strange. Use a magnifying glass. Check the 3 and 7 for doubling. Look for cracks on Lincoln's face. Inspect Liberty for the infamous BIE error. And always check if the design looks shifted or off balance. You don't need to be an expert. You just need to pay attention. Every year, people toss these rare pennies into Coinstar machines or hand them to grandkids, never knowing they were holding college tuition, mortgage payoffs, or even a second chance at life. The 1937 copper wheat penny with no mint mark might just be the most overlooked goldmine in American coin collecting. But only if you check now, because every day you wait, someone else cashes in. Have you ever thrown away a penny thinking it was worthless, just a rusty old coin from decades ago? What if I told you that a single 1937 wheat penny with no mint mark could be hiding a silent error so rare, so valuable, that collectors have paid over $927,000 for it, and yet almost nobody knows what to look for? Before you reach for your coin jar, hold on. There's a mistake, barely visible, nearly invisible to the untrained eye, that could make the difference between 1 cent and nearly $1 million. Most people overlook it. They think it's just another old penny. But that's exactly how these treasures hide in plain sight. The 1937 Lincoln wheat penny was minted in Philadelphia, which is why it has no mint mark. But don't let that fool you. Among the millions produced that year, a handful escaped with strange, almost ghost-like mint errors so subtle, they can trick even experienced collectors. And missing one could cost you a fortune. Let's start with the doubling. Imagine finding a 1937 penny where Lincoln's profile or the date seems ever so slightly thicker. Blurred. As if his face or the number 7 was stamped twice. This is called a double die, and on the 1937 penny, it's incredibly rare, but real. One such coin, misidentified for years, sold for over $450,000 when the error was confirmed. That collector. He almost spent it on lunch, but that's just the beginning. Around the 2-minute mark of checking this coin, something even more curious can emerge, a die crack that runs across the Liberty text, like a jagged lightning strike. These cracks come from worn dies, tools that stamp the pennies, and they often leave raised lines across the coin's surface. Most people see it and think it's damage. But a dramatic, well-placed die crack can raise your penny's value from a few cents to over $15,000, especially if it runs through the date or Lincoln's head. Now here's where most people get tricked. Some 1937 pennies, the number 3 appears almost melted into the 7. This isn't damage. It's a repunched date, a small minting error where the original number was struck again, slightly off position. It's so tiny, most folks miss it. But once identified, these repunched dates can fetch prices of $3,500 or more, just for that one little slip by the mint. But what if I told you there's a myth around the 1937 penny that has confused collectors for decades? For years, people believed that there was a version with a D mint mark that mysteriously vanished. Some even claimed to see one, but experts now agree, it's likely a worn mint mark from a different year, or a clever counterfeit. Still, this urban legend led to hundreds of fake 1937 D pennies floating in collections, and people still fall for it. If you have a 1937 penny with a mint mark, be very cautious. The Philadelphia version is the real deal, but only with the right errors. Just when you think you've seen it all, there's one more rare beast. There's a version of the 1937 wheat penny known as the high 7 variety. In this version, the number 7 rises higher than the rest of the date, sometimes even overlapping Lincoln's coat. It sounds ridiculous, but one such coin, authenticated and in top condition, went for $52,000 in a private collector auction. Still watching? Good. Because the scariest part is what happens if you don't look. These coins can sit in drawers for years, passed down through generations, their secrets unnoticed. I've seen estate sales where entire coin jars were dumped for $20, only to have one of these pennies inside, worth 6 figures. So how can you check yours? take a magnifying glass. Start with the date. Look for signs of doubling, thick numbers, a shadow effect. Next, run your eye over the word Liberty and Lincoln's jacket. Look for cracks, splits, or raised lines that aren't supposed to be there. Finally, check the wheat stalks on the back. Some rare errors show floating wheat tips, where the ends don't connect cleanly, and even these can raise the value to $1,200 or more. If you find even one of these details, don't spend that coin. Get it appraised, graded, protected. Because the difference between tossing it in a drawer and securing your future could be a single scratch, a slight shift in a number, a tiny minting flaw that makes it legendary. This isn't just about collecting. It's about paying attention. Because if you don't check your 1937 wheat pennies now, someone else might. And they might be the one walking away with the $927,000 coin you didn't know you had. So go. Check your jars. Search your drawers. You might be holding history, and a fortune, without even knowing it. Have you ever handed over a penny without even looking at the date? If you've got a jar of old coins sitting somewhere in your house, you might be sitting on a goldmine. Because there's one tiny mistake on a simple 1950 wheat penny, with no mint mark, that could be worth over $925,000. And most people miss it. You'd think a coin this old would show its value clearly. But the truth is, the most expensive 1950 penny ever sold didn't shine. It didn't look new. What made it rare was nearly invisible to the naked eye. A microscopic doubling of one number. A tiny crack on the die. Or a worn area where the mint left out something crucial. If you miss it, you lose. But if you catch it, you win big. Let's get one thing straight. The 1950 Lincoln wheat penny with no mint mark was minted in Philadelphia. It was mass-produced, yes. Over 272 million were made. But out of those, only a few have the errors collectors fight for. And the error that turned heads? A doubled die obverse, also known as DDO. Imagine seeing the word Liberty appear twice, slightly shifted, slightly ghosted. Or the date, 1950, showing a faint doubling that makes it look like it's vibrating. That kind of mistake. That's where the six-figure money lives. Collectors have paid up to $58,000 for a strong double die example in pristine condition. But here's the kicker, most people toss these coins into junk piles because the doubling isn't obvious at first glance. You have to tilt the coin in the light. You have to know what to look for. And that's what most people don't do. Now listen carefully, because this is where it gets even crazier. There's a rare die crack that runs vertically across Lincoln's face, some call it the scar error. It happened when the die cracked during minting, and the resulting mark created a scar-like feature from his forehead to his chin. These coins are extremely rare, and a high-grade version was auctioned for $14,750. Still with me? Good. Because here's another deadly mistake that most collectors ignore, weak strikes on the reverse. If the wheat stalks on the back are faded or incomplete, and the coin is otherwise sharp, this could be a result of a misaligned die or debris clogging the press. These struck-through errors can fetch $3,500 or more, depending on condition and severity, but the real shocker, the real fortune, hides in a myth. For years, collectors thought there was no such thing as a 1950 wheat penny with a repunched date. But recently, several examples surfaced, where the 0 in 1950 appears doubled or slightly tilted, a result of the mint hand-punching the date a second time to correct alignment. These RPM-style errors, though rare for Philadelphia coins, are being re-evaluated. One such coin was appraised at $9,800 by a private collector. Now ask yourself, how many 1950 pennies have you seen? How many have you tossed aside, thinking they were worthless copper? Some people even clean their coins, which erases the very details that make them valuable. That's like wiping off a signature from $1 million check. So how do you find one? Start with a magnifying glass, at least 10x. Focus on the word Liberty and the date. If there's any doubling, distortion, or strange shadows, don't ignore it. On the reverse, check the wheat stalks and the words 1 cent for doubling or fading. Look around the rim. Are there cracks? Notches? Anything that looks odd or off-center? If it feels strange, it might be rare, and remember, condition matters. A 1950 wheat penny with a rare error in worn condition might bring $500, but the same coin in mint state. That's where you get 5- and 6-figure offers. Coin grading services like PCGS and NGC can certify your find, and certified rare errors always sell higher. Let me leave you with this thought: someone out there, maybe someone just like you, found a 1950 penny in a desk drawer and sold it for nearly $1 million. Not because it looked fancy. Not because it was shiny. But because they knew what to look for. So before you throw that jar of pennies back in the closet, check again. That one copper coin with a ghosted 5 or a scar on Lincoln's face. That could be your retirement, sitting quietly in the dark. Don't let it stay hidden. Check now. Before someone else finds the fortune that could have been yours.